The series begins with Yoon. So you standing in front of a restaurant with her clothes soaked in blood and a knife in her hand, looking as if she's about to commit something evil. She's certain she will commit murder, as she says, "Today is the last day of my life." At that moment, Jun Do-gyong is crossing the street, and before she reaches the restaurant, the police stop her, arrest her, and take her to the station. There, Yoon bursts into loud sobs, repeating, "Trusting men is like trusting water in a sieve," while no one understands what's wrong with her. We then learn that Yoon is 29 years old, works as a nutritionist, and is unlucky in love because she discovered that her current boyfriend, Jun, was cheating on her on their anniversary. What's worse, he was cheating in the very restaurant she had booked for their celebration, and he was wearing the watch and suit she had bought him, as if humiliating her wasn't enough. Yoon breaks down further as she recalls how he was feeding the girl he was with directly into her mouth, something he had never done for Yoon. The police try to calm her down, saying no man is worth it. But they tell her this still doesn't justify trying to kill him. When they ask about the bloodstains on her clothes, she cries harder, explaining that it's not blood, but beet juice. She explains that she's a nutritionist trying to uncover the secret recipe for the sausage her boss Park loved as a child and still remembers vividly. Because of this picky boss, she works long hours as he doesn't like any food she makes and insists she try countless sausage flavors, even though she doesn't like sausage. This constant work meant she couldn't give attention to June, which led him to cheat. She even says she has never seen her boss, but swears that if she does, she'll kill him too. The police, finding her story a kind of moral lesson, decide to let her go on the condition she behaves herself and doesn't try to kill anyone again. The next day, Yoon goes to work and runs into June, who turns out to be the assistant manager at the same place. When she sees him, she imagines throwing a food tray in his face and insulting him, but in reality she controls herself and calmly tells him she wants to talk. In the elevator, he tells her he wants to break up. She is shocked because she expected him to apologize and try to make amends. Hurt in her pride, she says she also wants to break up, confronts him about his cheating and tells him she can't continue her life with him. With complete audacity, he replies, "That's better," and even thanks her for booking the restaurant, saying the evening with the other woman was wonderful. Furious, she asks for the reason, and he says, "I've been with you for a year and I'm simply bored. Even the staff are tired of your terrible cooking, just like I am, so you might as well resign." She walks away angrily. That night she goes to a bar drinking and replaying his words, convinced she's boring and no man could love her. At the bar, she notices a man trying every drink without liking a single one, reminding her of her impossible-to-please boss. She scolds him, saying, "Just eat whatever is put in front of you without complaining." The man is surprised, tells her she's drunk, but she says he reminds her of her boss, the reason she broke up with her boyfriend. The man flirts back, saying, "I'd never get bored of food made by a woman I love, and I'd never get bored of her either." His words touch her, and she agrees to have tea with him. That night, she wakes up in his house, lying beside him in bed. She remembers that while drunk, she asked, "Do you love me?" And he replied, "I do." Mortified, she sneaks away. The next day, the man discovers her identity from her ID and realizes she works at the same company. Meanwhile, she scolds herself for having tea with a stranger. Later, her boss calls her in and she assumes he'll fire her. Determined to speak her mind, she's shocked to find that her boss, Park, is the same man from the night before. Even worse, he remembers every word she said while drunk. She doesn't care and chastises him for obsessing over recreating the taste from his childhood instead of accepting what's served. Park laughs, then decides to have all his meals with the staff, clearly to see her all day, though she assumes he's trying to force her to resign. Jun notices something between them but says nothing. Yoon tells Park she'll serve him the same food every day until he gets bored. But he replies, "I'll never get bored of you or your cooking," which affects her and makes her like him. Here, Chapter 1 of the novel Ignite Our Love by author Janums ends. Upon release, the chapter receives huge praise from readers, though Janum herself is upset because a man named Hyun has been cruelly bullying her to the point she filed a lawsuit. She tells her friend, who comforts her, and continues writing Chapter 2. Later, she sees apology messages from Hyun saying he regrets everything and hopes she forgives him. The next day, she sees him on the street, throws the letters in his face, and says she will never forgive him, even wishing for his death shortly after she sees him about to be hit by a car and faints. When she wakes up, she's in a hospital and the doctor calls her Yoon Seo-yu. She thinks he's a fan of her novel, but is shocked to see her hair long, then discovers an ID with the name Yoon Seo-yu. She faints again. When she comes to, she overhears nurses talking about her relationship with Park. Then she sees Hyun approaching, worried for her. He says he brought her to the hospital but calls her Yoon Seo-yu and claims he's her boss, Park. This shocks her even more as the Park character in her novel has somehow become her bully Hyun. She runs away and boards a bus, but strangely it takes her back to the same place the driver tells her the next scene is important and there's no escape. She realizes she's trapped inside her novel, forced to act out its scenes. She loses control of her body and finds herself in a scene where Park hugs her, confesses his love, and asks, "Do you love me?" Against her will, she replies, "I do." Regaining control, she bites him, then goes to brush her teeth, repeatedly horrified about the next romantic scene. She decides to run away, but each time she tries, she finds him in front of her. Finally, she chooses to kill herself to end the story, believing that if the heroine dies, she'll return to her real life. As Janum, she climbs to the hospital roof to jump, but Park chases her, leaping heroically and catching her before she hits the ground, saying, "I love you, you crazy woman, and I won't let you hurt yourself." And then she wakes up to find herself in a room. So she writes down all the information she has learned, that the important scenes will inevitably happen, and that the heroine does not die. A little later, Park comes in, and it's time for the romantic scene. As usual, she loses control over her body and can't manage her actions. When she wakes up the next day, she doesn't remember anything. We then see Park holding the paper she wrote, and he sends it to the doctor, who diagnoses her with dissociative disorder. At that point, she goes to Park so they can perform the final scene of the novel, hoping she might find a way to get out. Suddenly, Park approaches her, but she literally can't stand him. He notices this and tells her he can't say, "Do you love me?" to someone who doesn't love him, or more precisely to someone who doesn't remember their love. How could she not remember? Well, let me remind you, Park had noticed her strange behavior and presented her case to a doctor, and she was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. That's what Park believes. But the truth is, Yoon Seo is living in a world that isn't hers. At that moment, she is surprised when June, his assistant, walks in, and the shocking part is that June appears in the form of her first love, whose name was also Park. She tells him, "No, don't get me wrong, what awful luck." She finds herself torn between leaving this one and going to that one, not knowing exactly what to do. The main thing is she's completely shocked the moment she sees June. Here Yoon Seo keeps calling June by the name Park, while Park tries to explain to her that this is June, his assistant, but she insists and swears up and down that he is indeed Park, her first love, and she kept cursing at the other Park, saying to him, "You, the bully in the novel, you're my lover and that makes you my ex." How is that even possible? At that moment, poor Park realized that Yoon's condition had worsened and that she was confusing him with John. The problem was that John got upset with her, thinking she was pretending not to remember just to annoy them. After their breakup, he became even more hostile when he found out she had gotten involved with director Park. All the while, Yoon kept looking at John, saying, "Park, my love, my soul, how can you be the villain in the novel?" Then Park carried her, determined to take her to the hospital. On the way, Yoon asked him to stop the car because she didn't need a hospital. She was confused by everything that had happened, recalling that Yoon from her real world had died in the accident, and that this was her punishment, having him as the protagonist in her novel. Of course, Park was bewildered by what he was hearing, not understanding why she considered his presence in her life a punishment, Yoon told him. "The bully Yoon became Park, my lover, and my first love, Park, became John, my ex." Park stared at her, completely lost, thinking she was going to drive him crazy, and asked, "Is there a specific reason you can't stand me, or is it just hormones?" He then asked her, "Who is this Park, your first love anyway?" She replied, "I can't stand you because you were a bully in my real world, always making my life miserable. But Park, he's my cutie pie, my very first love. The reason I even wrote this whole novel and made him the main character, because he's handsome and adorable." Literally, Park couldn't stand himself from how jealous he was of her. But he kept remembering that she was sick and there's no blame on the sick, so let's just put up with her, everyone. And that's it. He decided to play along with her and told her that he believed her. Not only that, he even said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry for bullying you." A little while later, he took her to the hospital against her will to get a brain scan while she kept cursing him over and over, saying, "You lowlife, you think I'm crazy," but in reality, he was literally dying from worry about her. "Oh, good for you, son. The soul of every woman on earth would be pleased with you. Anyway, Yoon, like any woman when her hormones kick in, decided to pick a fight with him because he pretended to believe her and then forced her to go to the hospital. She insisted on taking a taxi, stuck her tongue out at him, and walked away while he laughed because he was sure she'd come back again. And after a while, she found herself back in the same place again, which meant that an important romantic scene was about to happen in the novel. As usual, Park, the hero, would come and save her, and she had no choice but to go into the company and continue her work as a nutritionist. At that moment, she saw Park and John passing by the employees, and of course she kept laughing and looking at John. Then Park came over and said to her, "I missed you, and I'm sure you missed me too." "That's why I couldn't stay away." She looked at him with disgust and said, "Get lost, I came to see my lover," and of course she meant John. After a while, she remembers that there is supposed to be a romantic scene between them, so she becomes even more upset and annoyed. That's why while serving the food, she threw Park's plate in front of him and said, "Cut it with the silly ladder." As for John, she smiled at him and said, "Eat 1,000 here, my love," and she had drawn a number 4 on his plate, while for Park she had drawn an X. Of course, John was shocked by what she did, but Park, as we know, took things lightly, although he was also jealous of John. That's why he messed up the heart shape and told John that Yoon was sick, and maybe that was the reason John went to talk to Yoon and ask her, "What's with these behaviors lately?" In the morning you were calling me by Park's name, and now you're flirting with me in front of the staff, he then told her. Don't tell me you're trying to make Park reject me. He believed she was trying to provoke Park so he would get jealous over her. That's why he said to her, Park has surely gotten tired of you too, and no sane man would put up with being in a relationship with you. She was shocked by his words and told him, calm down, you're a toxic and rude man, but you're still like the moon. The real disaster was that despite insulting him, she still asked him to get back together as if nothing had happened. But he replied, when I throw something away, I never take it back, which was truly something extremely embarrassing. At that point, kind-hearted Park stepped in and hit him, saying, how can you say such a thing to my girlfriend? But the cheeky one didn't stay silent. She yelled at Park and said, may your hands be cut off. Stay away from my lover. At that moment, Park broke down and said to her, I'm your lover, and you, Yoon, are my beloved, then took her by the hand and told her, I love you and I can't live without you. She tells him, you're right. My love for you is part of your character in the novel, and we learn that she made Park's character madly in love with Yoon Seo. He's shocked by her words and says to her, enough with this nonsense, what novel and what foolishness? But she replies, telling him he's right not to believe her yet, it's the truth, and she says she's ready to prove it. That's why she takes him to a beach far away and tells him they're now very far from the company, then admits to him that this whole world is not real, that it's a fictional world she wrote in her novel, and that even he is a fictional character whose name isn't really Park. She tells him, to make you believe me, within a minute, I'll be transported to the company and locked inside the freezing chamber. He's surprised, because the beach is very far from the company, and she asks him to come quickly and save her or she'll die. Suddenly Yoon disappears before his eyes and is transported to the freezing chamber. Park is shocked and recalls everything she said, telling himself that if he believes her, it means her feelings for him wouldn't be real. But if he doesn't believe her, she'll die in the freezing chamber. He decides to believe her and drives quickly to reach her and save her life. Meanwhile, Yoon is freezing to death and wondering whether Park will believe her or not, all while screaming in hopes that someone will come and rescue her. Indeed, the workers gather and try to open the door, but it's useless. The door wouldn't open without Park. Time passes, and Yoon is about to freeze completely when Park arrives, opens the door, comes inside, gives her his jacket and says, I'm sorry I was late, then carries her out. At that moment, Yoon, or rather Gunnam, falls in love with Park, or Hyun. The important thing is that the heroine truly loves the hero this time. After that, Park feels upset because he realizes his feelings for her aren't real, and that he himself is just a fictional character. He tells this to Yoon, which makes her sad for him, and she spends the whole night feeling down, watching him as he sleeps completely and utterly in love with him. The next day she wakes him up quickly and tells him she has a surprise for him. She takes him to an old restaurant and tells him this is the place where he first tasted sausages in his childhood. Of course she knows this because she is the writer who created his character in the first place. She makes him a sausage dish just like the one he ate in his childhood and remembered the taste of until now. Despite that, Park feels upset because he loves Yoon and tells her that he wants to live his life with her even if his world is fictional. She told him, "You're right, my love for you is part of your personality in the novel." And we learn that she made Park's character madly in love with Yoon Seo. He is shocked by her words and says to her, "Enough of this nonsense, what novel and what silliness." But she replies, telling him that he's right not to believe her, yet this is the truth, and she tells him she's ready to prove it to him. So she takes him to a beach far away, and tells him that they are now very far from the company, then confesses to him that this whole world is not real, that it's an imaginary world she wrote in her novel, and that even he is a fictional character whose name isn't Park at all. She told him, "To make you believe me within 1 minute, I will be transported to the company and trapped inside the freezing room." He is surprised because the beach is so far from the company, and she asks him to come quickly and save her, otherwise she will die. Suddenly, Yoon disappears before his eyes and is transported to the freezing room. Park is stunned, recalling everything she said, and tells himself that if he believes her, it means her feelings toward him aren't real, but if he doesn't believe her, she will die in the freezing room. He decides to believe her and drives quickly to reach her and save her life. Meanwhile, Yoon is freezing to death and wondering whether Park will believe her or not. She keeps shouting, hoping someone will come and save her. Indeed, the workers gather and try to open the door, but it's useless. The door wouldn't open without Park's presence. Time passes and Yoon is about to freeze completely until Park arrives, opens the door, enters, gives her his jacket and says, "I'm sorry and I was late for you," then carries her and takes her out. And at that moment, Yoon or Ganam falls in love with Park or Hyun. The important thing is that the heroine loves the hero, but this time for real. After that, Park is upset because he realizes that his feelings toward her are not real and that he himself is just a fictional character. He says this to Yoon, who feels sad for him. She remains upset all night and goes to watch him while he sleeps, literally falling for him from the 10th floor in love. The next day she wakes him up quickly and tells him she has prepared a surprise for him. She takes him to an old restaurant and tells him this is the place where he tasted sausage for the first time in his childhood. Of course she knew this because she is the author who created his character in the first place. She makes him a sausage dish just like the one he ate in his childhood, and still remembers its taste until now. Even so, Park remains upset because he loves Yoon and tells her that he wants to continue his life with her, even if his world is imaginary.